Bye bye, Bungie, and say hello to PlayStation Studios as they are about to absorb Marathon. That is the title of this article right here, and what a juicy title. Let's jump right into it. 3 years after Sony's costly $3.6 billion acquisition of video game studio Bungie, the PlayStation parent company is changing its tune regarding the subsidiary's independence. Which, by the way, a $3.6 billion evaluation for Bungie is pretty incredible. I'm not sure how Bungie pulled off this psyop, because I can't help but feel like they have to be worth like a fraction of that at this point in time, right? I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they are worth $3.6 billion. I can't actually see the numbers of how much how much revenue they generate. And while I do imagine that Eververse is absolutely raking in the money for Destiny 2, $3.6 billion still seems like an incredible number. And considering this was years ago, I wonder what their evaluation would be today. After the Marathon art theft controversy, after Destiny 2's success and struggles over the last 3 years, comment down below what you think Bungie's current evaluation would be. The Sony Chief Financial Officer, Lin Tao, detailed the company's journey ahead of the company's August 7th earnings call. Sony Group Corporation shareholders in attendance also raised questions about the state of Bungie's contentious first-person shooter Marathon. And let's be honest here for a minute, Marathon is more than contentious. Marathon is a dumpster fire, a complete train wreck that has almost hit its final stop. But let's not beat a dead horse. Let's see what we have here. When asked about Sony's governance of Bungie, the Sony CFO detailed how the acquisition has changed in the 3 years since the ink dried. According to Tao, the Washington state-based brand will assimilate into the Sony Entertainment Interactive organization, the latter wholly absorbing the long-standing Halo Combat Evolved studio. And this has become such an interesting point for me because if Bungie themselves is being assimilated into Sony Interactive, does that mean that the name Bungie continues on? Like, there's kind of two big issues that are happening here, which the first is Bungie's complete independence while being underneath Sony in terms of they get to create Destiny 2 and take it whatever direction they want, and Marathon as well. But the second one is just the existence of Bungie itself. Like, obviously they were purchased for $3.6 billion, meaning that Sony owns them. And if Bungie tarnishes the reputation enough, like what they did with Marathon, it's not surprising that Sony would just want to get rid of the name altogether. Sony, being a Japanese company, really prides themselves on their reputation. They have a very sophisticated culture. They want the games that they produce to at least have a high bar of quality. And so I feel like Bungie being underneath Sony's umbrella and being exposed for like easily one of the worst art theft controversies ever really puts a stain not just on Bungie's legacy, obviously, but also on Sony as well, which means we could very well be seeing and witnessing the complete dissolution of Bungie, which is absolutely absurd. And it sounds crazy to even say that out loud, considering their storied history of creating some of the most incredible games. I mean, Halo and Destiny are iconic IPs within the gaming sphere. But Bungie is about to get the Firewalk Studios treatment. That's the company that made Concord, if you don't know what I'm talking about. It goes on to quote them saying, "The governance at the time of acquisition, we were offering a very independent environment. So that was one way of thinking. However, thereafter, we have gone through structural reform, as we have announced last year. So from this type of independence, this independence is getting lighter." So Bungie is losing their independence underneath Sony. They will no longer be able to call the shots in regards to their creative vision for Destiny 2 and for Marathon. So Bungie is shifting into a role which is becoming more a part of PlayStation Studio, and integration is also proceeding. So in the long term, if you can see this as an ongoing process, so the direction is to become part of PlayStation Studio. During the Q&A, Tao responded to shareholder concerns regarding the controversial FPS Marathon. And I'm sure they're going to be very professional in regards to their response, but let's be real here. If people are being honest about Marathon, this thing is a real shit show. But considering all the money Sony has invested in it to get it to this point, I can see why they might want to give it another try. Like, I'm sure they're going to produce a new trailer very soon and kind of showcase and demonstrate what Marathon looks like after all of the stolen art is scrubbed clean. But I can already tell you that the internet is not going to have that. Marathon's culture and Bungie's values and what the gaming community wants just do not align. Bungie has all but refused to do what the community in Destiny 2 has wanted for the last 10 years. So what makes you think it's going to be any better when they enter a whole new genre with the extraction shooter Marathon? of course they are going to choose to make more painful and problematic decisions instead of just letting us, the audience, tell them what we want. When asked whether the once delayed game is still expected in 2025, Tao said, "We are now fixing the problems, but we do believe this launch will happen." Wow, we do believe this launch will happen. Believe is an interesting way to say that. And if this launch is canceled, we need to do a revision of the valuation. However, as of now, this is not expected. Are we talking about a revision of the valuation of Marathon or of Bungie? Surely it's Marathon right now, right? And if that's the case, Marathon's current market valuation is that of a used roll of toilet paper. While Tao didn't give a firm date for Marathon, the Sony CFO divulged that they expect the launch to happen within the fiscal year, meaning by the end of March of 2026. But having that is not a commitment. We cannot, no official announcement has been given yet, so they can't do a commitment. No official announcement has been given. We are expecting this to be launched within the fiscal year, which is going to be March 2026. I think that Sony, just like everyone would anticipate, they're really teetering on whether or not to just cancel this game altogether. We just went through this entire rundown with Concord, and that game cost Sony $400 million in losses. I can almost guarantee you that Sony is breathing down Bungie's neck saying, "We cannot do that again. You will need to make this game successful." And Bungie is absolutely scrambling, not knowing what to do. How do you make a game that's not even out yet, that's already hated by everyone, good? I don't know if they can pull it off. There might be a scenario out there that exists where Bungie does somehow pull this off. I have no clue what that would take. I do not think that Bungie is capable of pulling that off, given what they've shown us so far and their recent track record with Destiny 2. But if they did pull it off, it would be studied as the greatest psyop in gaming history. The PvP extraction shooter, first introduced to potential players in 2023, had a tentative release date of September 23rd, 2025, but in May 2025, Bungie faced art theft accusations from fans and prominent industry voices after independent artist Andy Reel juxtaposed her 2017 works with in-game elements. The artist comparison went viral, leading to the studio to issue a statement confirming the artist piece were incorporated into the title by a former Bungie artist, which is just very convenient, by the way. I've said this before, but I guess we don't know if it was a former Bungie artist as of like they had been laid off months before, or if they were a former Bungie artist as of that day when they found out, right? I feel like Bungie really tried to pin this all onto one individual person, and that might very well be the truth of the situation, but it definitely looked really bad when several members of Bungie's art team were following Anti-Real on Twitter. It kind of made it look like they knew of them and were interested in their artwork, and maybe used some of their stuff as at least inspiration for creating Marathon. Bungie trying to quickly create a scapegoat of a one singular rogue former employee that is completely unnamed and unknown. Who was the person that actually stole the art, right? You would think in this day and age, with how the internet is, with hacking and data mining and everything else, I mean, that we would have probably figured out who it was. I don't think we should go on some kind of crazy witch hunt and try to find them. I'm just saying that it's crazy to me that they somehow remained completely anonymous in this day and age. I mean, Bungie can't even drop anything new into Destiny 2 without data miners leaking all of it, like months in advance. But somehow, there is this mysterious rogue Bungie, ex-Bungie agent that single-handedly ripped off a portion of Anti-Real's work, copy and pasted it directly into Marathon, then got laid off and is just gone, just completely gone, and no one knows who it is. No one knows who it is. We don't know. I mean, some people at Bungie know, like there are some devs and some employees at Bungie that know. I'm sure they're talking, right? Like I'm sure like, hey, was it Dave? Was it Dave? It was Dave. That motherfucker. He ruined our whole game. Like, could you imagine like how much anger and frustration you'd have if you are on the Marathon team at Bungie and you find out that Dave did you guys dirty? Dave messed it up for everyone. And the craziest part is that if that is true, that Dave did that, why is Dave not getting sued into like oblivion? You know what I'm saying? Like Dave should be sued. Like Dave should be sued for all of the costs of scrubbing the assets, and he should be in like generational debt. Like his children's children should be in debt from this. Like this is bad. Like if Dave really went onto Twitter and copy and pasted Anti-Real's elements and just threw them into Marathon and then got laid off the next week, that dude, it messed up so bad. And the fact that he gets off scot-free and he's out there working for some other game studio right now probably is just wild to me. Adding insult to injury, Anti-Real's elements were copy-pasted into Marathon, meaning that even Anti-Real's logo found its way into the game, that was really bad. Like, let's be real, like, it's one thing to steal their art, you know, but it's like you literally stole the watermark, like their actual logo, like that's tough. In June 2025, just 1 month later, Bungie announced it would delay Marathon indefinitely, which is a good play. I think that delaying it to another specific date was not what you want to do. Right now, you just need to let everything cool down a little bit. Maybe some people forget. Maybe we mix up the assets and the elements. Maybe you got to make the whole game look different. We might need a whole new color palette. Relaunch it with some new updates, listening to the feedback from the community. Maybe some people are interested. I don't know. I can't see a world where it does well. I do feel like this game is best to just be discontinued at this point. Just cut your losses short, but that's not what Sony's doing. That's not what Bungie's doing. Since Sony Entertainment Interactive purchased the studio in July 2022, Bungie has bid farewell to a myriad of notable team members in recent years, including prominent project heads behind Destiny and Marathon. The latter's director, Chris Barrett, is reportedly pursuing Sony and Bungie over funds he says he's still owed following the acquisition. Barrett, according to Forbes, was forced out after a misconduct investigation, which is still an ongoing lawsuit. We don't know what the resolve of that will be. I genuinely don't think that Bungie forced Christopher Barrett out of their studio just to not pay him the money, because I think all of that money wouldn't even go to the Bungie devs that forced him out. Like, it doesn't even make sense. Like, the money that he is owed is like to Sony, and whoever forcing him out, like whoever's forced him out due to these misconduct allegations, they don't just like get his money because they like snitched on him or whatever, right? So I feel like Christopher Barrett is probably guilty. That's my opinion on the matter. But there's one thing, it's one thing to be guilty of something, but were the allegations put against you strong enough to actually be removed and have your payout revoked from you, right? Like, it's one thing if you're being like creepy, flirty in the office, maybe. Like, obviously you should be laid off, let go, but will a judge see it in a way where Christopher Barrett is paid some amount of his money that he's owed from that Sony buyout? I don't know. Like, we've seen crazier court cases happen. I don't know if Christopher Barrett will actually get a payout from that. He's meant to be owed like some $80 million. It might be settled out of court, but unlikely, I think, because I think Bungie wants to send a message here. I think they want Christopher Barrett to be exposed in the situation. Like, I think that there's some real contempt here between these two parties. It would be so interesting to see what the result of that lawsuit is between Christopher Barrett, Sony, and Bungie. Next up, we have, in addition to top-ranking team leads' departures, substantial studio-wide layoffs in July 2024 cost hundreds of employees their roles, around 17% of staff. Ultimately, job losses hindered Marathon's production. All right, let's be honest here for a minute. I mean, Marathon may have lost some of their employees, 17% of their staff, but that's not why this game is half-cooked. The game is half-baked because you just had a goofball vision for the game. You're jumping into a hardcore genre, making a hyper-casual version of it, meaning that you just have no audience, you have no target audience for the game, which can be okay. It's not necessarily the worst strategy, because what you're trying to do in that situation is create a brand new audience. This is something that has been successful for games in the past. Like, look at Fortnite, you know? Like, technically Battle Royales existed before Fortnite, but they were really like, it's so unique and so different that they like created their whole new audience of people. But Marathon is not Fortnite. Marathon is more like Concord. Next, Tao also addressed the current state of live service games during the call. 5 years ago, live service games were almost non-existent for PlayStation Studios. That's crazy that it was 5 years ago, considering that Destiny 2 came out in 2017, absolutely tanked, fell face first into the ground, and then adapted itself to become a live service game and achieved monumental success, which has since completely redefined the industry of gaming in general. Like, everything is trying to be live service now. The CFO said, we have Helldivers 2, MLB, Gran Turismo 7, and Bungie's Destiny 2. And these live service games just keep generating monthly revenue so consistently that they make the shareholders happy. And they're just generally a better investment for businesses. The business model itself is just significantly more sustainable and less risky. Box service games, you can invest so much money into them and then they go belly up immediately. You don't recoup your losses as well. I mean, I guess technically Concord was meant to be a live service game and it went belly up. So technically you can get catastrophic losses both ways. But the idea is that you launch a successful franchise, you build an audience, and you keep giving them updates, and you regularly rake in revenue month after month, year after year. And Sony obviously wants more live service games. So we have these 4 live services contributing to sales and profit in a stable manner. Tao continues, saying the transformation is not entirely going smoothly, but from a longer perspective, if you look at the changes over 5 years, you see that there has definitely been a change. Of course, we recognize that there are still issues, many issues, so we should learn lessons from mistakes and make sure that we introduce live service content where there's little less waste and it's more smooth. I think that what live service is doing to the gaming industry is very similar to what happens in content creation in general. I'll give you an excellent example without getting into too much depth and detail. Live streamers have a ton of competition because you can only watch like one live stream at a time. So you'll notice that if you look at the directory of any given game, there will be like one person way on top, and then the second person has like 50% views, third person, and it goes on, it tails on. When you look at like the 10th person in any gaming directory, it tapers off really fast. Like I'll give you a good example. If you look at the Destiny 2 directory on Twitch right now, you've got Asdacross, 3.7 thousand viewers, Jake, 2,200 viewers, so a little bit more than half. Sweatsicle, 600, Frostbolt, 600, Clyde, 500, and you can see here that it tapers off really fast, and you kind of get into this range where a lot of these channels just have significantly less viewers. Like the percentage loss is crazy when you go from like first down to 10th place, right? But when you look at YouTube where it's not live and you can watch a video and then click on another video and then click on another video, and basically in one session you could sit down, let's say in 4 hours, and consume, like 50 videos or more, right? You get this. This is what YouTube looks like under the Destiny 2 category. You have this person who 8 days ago made a 4.2 million viewed video. You have Ascross, 245,000 views. This guy is Yethical, made 479,000 views. Clyde had a video with 368,000 views. There's just a lot more variety because you can just do more. This is like box service. YouTube is like box service, whereas Twitch is live service. So the point I'm trying to get at with this is that live service games create a vacuum in which players enter into them and stay within them, and they exist within that ecosystem. They play those particular games very consistently, and they tend to not venture out because they have so much investment in those games. They have money, time, loot, cosmetics, you name it, all these things that keep players coming back. And so these live service games have created a vacuum that keeps players playing one particular game, whereas before we would do box service and we would just play a new game, and then once we got bored of it, maybe 2 weeks later, we'd buy another game, and then 2 weeks later, another game, and another game, and maybe a month later, whatever time period you'd get bored of a game, you just keep buying another game. But that's not how games work anymore. Now you buy a new game, and 2 weeks later, some crazy new update just came out. Some crazy new piece of content just got released in that game. And so you play again for a third week. And then by the end of the third week, something even new came out. And so you play again for a fourth week. And this cycle goes on and on and on, and it keeps you in that particular game. So what we're seeing is the implosion of the gaming community, where we have all these box service games that have done so well for so long, and they're now all being sucked into a vacuum where you're going to have basically just like a dozen or 2 dozen hyper successful live service games and a few box service games sprinkled in here and there. But overall, I think that those trends may die off more, not because they're not good. I mean, there's some incredibly good box service games out there, but the problem with them is just that they're so risky. It's so risky to invest like millions of dollars into a project. And if it's successful right off launch, that's great. It'll recoup all of its losses. And if it's not, then you lost so much, right? Like some of these games could launch at a loss, like Helldivers 2. Any of these games can launch at a loss and not make a profitable launch, but because it's live service, it can generate revenue month after month after month, and then they can adjust the size and the scope of the game, the size of the studio, its budget each month to accompany how successful it is, right? So if 3 years from now the live service game is generating X amount of revenue and can only afford X amount of developmental effort, then that's how many devs they hire to stay profitable. And the cycle continues on and on. Near the end of the call, corporate participant Naoya Hori addresses the impact of the Trump administration's tariffs, stating that overall, from Q2 onward, the U.S. tariff impact will be felt more pronouncedly. Whoa, I didn't even think about that. Trump placing tariffs on all these foreign goods affects Sony because they're obviously not an American company, but it doesn't affect Microsoft because Microsoft is US, right? Which is wild. So like, because Microsoft is an American company, they don't get affected by the tariffs, and they're already so far in the lead. Like, if you don't know the difference, like the net worth of Sony is currently appraised at $164 billion, which is a lot. Don't get me wrong. That's an incredibly powerful company. But Microsoft is $3.8 trillion. That is substantially higher. They have an immense amount of capital to move around, and they're not going to be punished by the tariffs that Trump's putting in place. And considering that gaming is primarily in America, this is extremely helpful for Microsoft and extremely unfortunate for Sony. They were already losing in terms of this like crazy race between buying out all these gaming studios. They were losing by a wide margin, and now it's even getting worse for them. And then also there will be more uncertainties. So in quarter one, we had a really good performance, but from quarter two onward, we are more conservative and we need to take a more cautious approach. Wow, that is crazy to think about. They just went through the Concord disaster. They're about to experience Marathon, and they're getting crazy tariffs put on them, which is going to cut their overall profitability as a company. I know we will likely never see this in our lifetime, but how crazy would it be if Microsoft just said, you know what if we just bought you? Like, they literally have that much money, right? Microsoft could just straight up buy Sony. And if you think that's not possible, remember 3.8 trillion, right? That's like, you can't even fathom how much money that is. I'm not saying I can, I'm just saying we can't even fathom how much money that is. Like, I got 14 bucks and a pack of gum in my pocket. Sony's worth 164 billion. Microsoft bought Activision Blizzard in 2023 for 75 billion, which is about half the net worth of Sony in its entirety. So could we see a Microsoft acquisition of Sony after the tariffs go live, after Marathon tanks? It might be wise for Sony to sell to Microsoft. I'm not sure if that would be good for the overall health of gaming in general, though. I'm not sure if that would be the death of PlayStation. It would truly be the last infinity gem inside Microsoft's gauntlet. But with where things are trending, I wouldn't be too surprised. Let me know what you think about Bungie going bye-bye, PlayStation absorbing the Marathon studio, and this entire article. If you enjoyed this video, then click on the screen here to watch another one from this channel. And don't forget that we're doing a monthly emblem giveaway for anyone that is subscribed with notifications on, likes, and comments on the video. We'll be scrolling through all the comments, picking random winners. So best of luck to you out there, and we appreciate you watching.